So in this session, I'm going to explain about how to get started to this software called Terraform. So I'll explain what is automation, what is infrastructure as code, some advantages, then how to use Terraform for AWS Cloud. Okay, so these are the things we are going to see in this session. Okay. So let's say this is your laptop or desktop. And from your laptop or desktop, you're accessing various clouds, right? Maybe sometimes AWS Cloud, sometimes Azure Cloud. Okay. So how you're accessing? So you're accessing via the browser, right? This AWS Cloud, it is AWS Management Console. If it is Azure, it's Azure Portal. So very similarly, various other cloud has browser-based way of accessing various services. So we can go to AWS, we can do activities. So whatever we do via this browser-based way, so this is actually manual. So manual activity, right? I'm going to explain manual versus automation. Okay. So manual means, so you go to this cloud portal, cloud console, you click on various icons, services, features, and you do activity. If you want to build an application stack, sometimes you need to create network, you need to create sub-network, you need to create internet gateway, then you need to launch virtual machines, then connect to it, the configure application, right? So this is manual. See, manual is okay for the first time. So for the first time, I'm saying manual is okay. Okay, so even in a production environment, sometimes when you're doing activities for the first time, so enterprises, people will do via the manual way. But if you have repeated activity, so let's say you're creating a network in cloud, you're creating sub-network in cloud, you're creating internet gateway in cloud, you're launching virtual machine in cloud. And let's say all this you have done for a single project. If you want to do the same for another project, again you have to repeat it. If you want to do it for 10 other projects, you have to repeat it 10 times, right? So it means when you are repeating the task, then if you are doing it in a manual way, so what are all the disadvantages? So disadvantages of manual. So one, time consuming, right? So you know how to do it manually, but you are repeating 10 times, right? So you are creating 10 networks, 10 sub networks. In each network, you are creating EC2 instances. So it is time consuming. That is one. Second, humans make errors. Okay, so they are humans. We do activity in a manual way. Even though we know the concepts thoroughly, if we have done once, if we are repeating the same activity multiple times, we may make mistakes. Okay. Sometimes we miss to add a rule in the security group. Sometimes we miss to add a route in the route table. Sometimes we accidentally change some values while creating virtual machine, right? So it means manually when you are doing, so it's human errors may come. Okay, that is second disadvantage. Maybe for a corporate, if you are working in a company, okay, let's say you're the cloud admin for 2 years. You have done various activities. You have done network, you have created net subnets, you have created security group rules, routable routes. You have done various activities. Let's say you got a new job, you are leaving this company. So for this company, if someone is coming newly, and if you have done everything manually, the new person may not know what you have done, right? So normally that's what companies, what they do. They will give knowledge transfer to the new person. So if someone is coming to the organization for the first time, so they will transfer the knowledge, what you have done. But that itself, again, it's time consuming. Even if you explain everything, sometimes that person, the new person may not understand 100%, right? He may understand 50%, right? So these are some disadvantages, knowledge transfer, if you have done manually. Have you understood? So manually, if you are doing activity, I'm saying first time it's okay. But if you are repeating the same, there is a lot of disadvantages. So one, that is time consuming. Two, humans make errors. Three, if you are leaving the organization and if someone else is coming, you are transferring your knowledge, whatever you have done manually, but still it's not perfect knowledge transfer. Okay. So these are some of the disadvantages. Okay. So to solve these issues, enterprises have moved. It's not new. Okay. Automation is not new. Enterprises have moved towards automation. Okay. Maybe even from the very beginning, when companies were running business, they started to do automation. Have you understood? So automation, what is automation? Automation doesn't mean it will happen everything automatically. So you as a automation engineer, you as a cloud engineer, you as a DevOps person, you need to make everything happen in an automated way. Have you understood? Okay, now this can be done using two ways. Automation can be done using two ways. One, you can write programs. Okay. One, you can write programs. But in order to write program, for example, like Python or Go language or anything, you need to have strong knowledge on that particular software. That is one. But in modern day, maybe last 10 years, even without proper programmatic background, people are doing automation. Example, I, I actually done computer science, but I am not really have a lot of interest in writing programs. Okay. I never worked as a developer. Right. But I have done a lot of automation. Okay. So which means even without proper programmatic background, it is possible to do automation. How? So using modern day softwares. Okay. Automation softwares. So this is two. Now, how can you do automation? So for example, if you want to create some resources in cloud, instead of going to this portal and manually clicking on various icons, services, features, and doing activity, what you can do is you can write code. Now, writing code can be done in two ways. One, using traditional programs. Okay, using Python, Go language, something like that. And I'm saying in modern day, you don't need to, even if you don't have deep programmatic background, it is possible for you to become expert in automation. Okay, using modern day automation software. Have you understood? Okay, any questions here? So have you understood the difference between manual and automation? So automation means writing code. So you need to write code. You need to say what you want to do, and you need to run the code. When you run the code, so the resources will get created. For example, network will get created, sub network will get created, internet gateways will get created, EC2 instances will get created. and you're doing it for one project, and if you want to do it for 10 other projects, you have the code written once, you can repeat it multiple times. Okay, any questions? Any questions related to manual versus automation?
Jerrish, that is fine. Can you give some explanation on what is DevOps?
DevOps, like in high level, it's combination of both developers and operations. Okay, traditionally, developers were separating, operations were separating. So modern day enterprises have a separate job role called DevOps, who have knowledge on both development as well as operation. Sometimes not 100%, right? A person may come from non-development background, can work on DevOps, or a person may come from a development background, can work on DevOps. Okay. But modern day enterprises are using various softwares. Those softwares can be used by either developers or by the operations person. Okay, anybody can use. That's it. But yeah, maybe DevOps. I have done one webinar long back, maybe a few weeks back. I spent 1 hour, 1.5 hour explaining what is DevOps. But today I'm just telling you in a high level. Okay, but DevOps is like collaboration of both developers and operations team. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So have you understood manual versus automation? Okay, automation is not new. Okay, I'm saying from the time companies were starting to do business using computers, people started to write programs. Whatever they are manually doing, if they want to do it in an automated way, they start to write programs like Python codes, PowerShell, shell scripts. They write code and they run the code. But modern day, last 10 years, so even people from non-development background, they start to write code. But these codes are not development codes. Like you don't need to know Python or Go language to become automation engineer or DevOps person. Okay, you can learn these automation softwares. Okay, there is a lot of softwares available. Okay, there's a lot of softwares available in the market, like Ansible. Ansible is a software. Terraform. So the today's session, what I'm explaining, it is a software. Okay. Pulumi, a very big list. Okay, and this software Terraform is very popular in doing cloud automation. Have you understood? So, what is Terraform? So that's the topic of the day, right? What is Terraform? Terraform is an automation software. Okay. So if you have a laptop, if you have Windows or Linux or Mac operating system, within that you can install Terraform. Terraform is a software. Like how we install a lot of softwares, browsers, media players. Okay, we can install Terraform as a software within the Windows or Linux or Mac. Okay. Now by installing this software, what you can do? Okay, you can write code. But the code what you are writing is not programs. They are human readable declarative language. Looks like program, sometimes looks very complex, but it's not programs. They are human readable data serialization. Human readable means you can able to read it, you can understand what is happening there. Okay, even if you are not from the programmatic background, it is possible to get start to that particular language. Have you understood? Terraform has its own language, you can get start to it. And when you write the code and when you run the code, whatever you have written in the code will get created in cloud. You don't need to log in via this management console. You don't need to go to various services. Okay. Even though I'm saying like this, I told you, for the first time when you are learning, or for the first time when enterprises are doing activity, they will do via the management console. Okay, you need to know manually to do automation. You need to know, that's what you are learning cloud courses. You learn everything manually. But if you want to do automation, you need to know how to do it manually. Without knowing how to do it manually, you can't automate. Have you understood?
Jerrish, already we know with the help of scripting language, we can automate all the manual things. Then what's the use of this Terraform?
AWS CLI. You are asking about AWS CLI? No,
AWS, yes.
I didn't get you.
Actually, yesterday classes, we knew that with the help of scripting language, we can automate all the
Yes.
things. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
The reason why. The reason why we have software is, I told you, right? These softwares can be even used by non-developers person. See, programs, people need to know the program, how to write the code, how to have the logics, all that they have to know. They have to come from a development background to write the code. It will be sometimes difficult for non-developers, right? Let's say you are coming from a non-technical background, and if you are starting to go read the programming languages like shell scripts, Java or Python, you may not understand what is written, right? But even if you are not from a not development background, so you can start to this softwares like Ansible, Terraform, Pulumi, etc. Right? So these softwares here as well you have code, but it has its own language. Okay, you can learn that language, you can write code, but the code what you are writing is not very complex. It's human readable. Okay, that's the reason enterprises start to use it, because when you are working in a company, companies are hiring people who come from development background as well as from non-technical background. So sometimes developers will be there, sometimes non-developers will also be there. So there should be a common software which has to be used by both developers and operations. That's what modern day, lot of softwares like Ansible, Terraform, Pulumi, they are used by enterprises. Anybody can easily get started to it, right? I understood. That is one reason. That is other reasons. These softwares are more intelligent than traditional programs. For example, I'll give one example. Let's say you are writing a Python code, okay, and you are running the code. If you run the code, let's say the EC2 instance is getting created in cloud, and let's say you're running for the second time. What happens? It will again create another EC2 instance, which means the code will not know whether the resource is already created or not. Have you understood? You have created the code to create EC2 instance. Okay, you ran the code, Python code. It will create the resource in cloud. And you are running for the second time. You are again running the code. What happens? It will create another EC2 instance. But sometimes you need to know, you need to run the code just to create once. But that will not happen with the Python program or shell scripts. So they are not intelligent. Okay, so these softwares are not, the traditional programming softwares are not intelligent. If you want to really make it more intelligent, you need to write the code more complex. But these automation softwares, if I install Terraform, and if I create a Terraform code, and if I create a server in cloud or infrastructure in cloud, I can create entire infrastructure via Terraform. For example, I can create VPC, subnets, Internet Gateway, EC2 instances, all via Terraform. If I create everything by running the code, and if I purposefully run it one more time, or accidentally, even if I run one more time, it is not going to create one more resource. It will say that it is already there, which means it will intelligently understand that whatever you have written in the code is already created. That intelligence is there on the softwares. These softwares has some states. We call that as states. Okay. I understood. But traditional programming languages will not have that intelligence. So modern day softwares will have those intelligence. Have you understood? I'll show you today a demo. You'll understand. Okay. So you write code, you run the code, the resource will get created in cloud. If you run one more time, it is not going to create one more time. It will intelligently compare what you have written and what is there in the infrastructure. Which will compare? These softwares will compare. But traditional programming languages, if you want to compare, you need to write the code in such a way that code needs to be more complex. I'm not saying it's not possible, but it's possible. But if you write a simple code to create a EC2 instance, if you run once, it will create once. If you again run for the second time, it will create one more time. I understood.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Now this software, Terraform, not only Terraform, Ansible, Pulumi, there is a lot of softwares. These softwares are called infrastructure as a code, IAC. It's not infrastructure as a service. It's infrastructure as code, which means it is possible that you can write code, you can build entire infrastructure or entire resources, what is needed for your project. I understood. It is possible that you can build bigger architectures. Okay. Whatever you are doing via manually, 2-tier, 3-tier applications, you can write it in a code, run the code. Okay. So we call that as infrastructure as code. So entire infrastructure is written in a code. Maybe you can create a folder saying project. Within the folder, you can keep your code. If you run the code, entire infrastructure will get created. So these softwares like Terraform, Ansible, Pulumi, they are called infrastructure as a code. Have you understood? Have you understood? Any questions? If you have any questions, you can ask. So if not, we will move on.
No questions, sir.
Okay. So the advantage of using these softwares are, like I told you, it's human readable. First advantage. It's human readable. See, even though I have said like as a single person you can write code, but if you are working in a company, it's not sometimes again you. Maybe your team, 5 people, 10 people, sometimes collaboratively sit and write the code. Okay. For a single project. Let's say you have a project. It's not only you sit and write the code. You will have knowledge on Terraform. Very similarly, your team members also will have knowledge on Terraform. So maybe 5 people, 10 people, they work in a collaborative way and create the code. Okay. Right. Again, traditional programming language can also be done in a collaborative way. Like that, modern day automation softwares, when you are writing code, that can also be done in a collaborative way. Okay. Right. So I'm saying collaborative, but it's not only the advantage of automation software. Even the traditional programming language can be collaborative. Okay. Then the bigger advantage of Terraform is using Terraform, it is possible that you can automate AWS infrastructure or Azure infrastructure or GCP infrastructure or Kubernetes environment or various other environments. So it's like multi-cloud and multi-environment automation software. Okay, so Terraform is a software developed by a company called HashiCorp. Okay, so and because this is an open source software, Terraform is designed in a way to do automation against various infrastructures. It's not only for AWS. Today I'm saying I'll do a get start to AWS, but it can be done for Azure cloud. It can be Terraform can be used for GCP. Terraform can be used for Kubernetes environment. Terraform can be used for Oracle cloud, various other clouds, maybe hundreds. Okay, hundreds of infrastructures you can automate via Terraform. Okay, which means Terraform is multi-cloud, multi-environment automation software. Okay, I understood.
Jerrish, you told that it's open source software. Whether enterprises allows to use open source in their environment. Generally, their audit team suggests if it is a open source, I mean, if it is not a open source, that would be good. So, what will be the case?
Okay, open source software can be used. Okay, there is a lot of 90% of enterprises use open source software. Linux is an open source software. Linux operating system itself is an open source, right? So among billions of websites, Linux runs a lot, right? And there is a lot of open source software. Most of the modern day DevOps softwares are open source. Ansible is an open source software. Terraform is an open source software. Enterprises will use open source softwares. Okay. Okay. So have you understood?
Yes, sir. Sir,
Okay. Yeah.
so
If
it
you
is
have questions, you
mutable
can
or
ask.
immutable? It is mutable or immutable, sir?
Mutable.
Is-
It is actually, it has concept called state. Okay. So it is
Okay, sir.
possible. Okay. It is possible to work like mutable.
Okay, sir.
There is what is mutable or non-mutable?
Mutable means it is possible to change. Okay. So change over the period of time. Right. Actually, this is initially developed by a soft company called HashiCorp. Okay. It was open source. And over the period of time, it will have various features, plugins getting changed over the period of time. Okay. Yeah, let's move on. Okay. Move on. See, I'll tell you what I have done up to this. So today we started with this manual versus automation. I said manually, if you're doing things, first time it's okay. But if you are repeating things, it's time consuming, it's error prone. And when you're doing knowledge transfer, you will not be able to do complete knowledge transfer. Now, using automation, okay, it is faster. Automation is faster. You save a lot of time. When you're repeating things, you may have less errors. Repeating things, okay? For the first time, it's difficult to build the code or build the automation code. But when you're repeating things, it's powerful. And knowledge transfer, because you have written the code, if you are leaving the organization and someone else is joining the organization with the same skill, same Terraform skill, he will be able to read the code and understand what is created via the code. So knowledge transfers because it is documented like a code. So the new person will be able to easily understand. Okay. So these are the advantages of automation. Okay. And I told you automation can be done in two ways. Traditional programs also will do automation. Python, PowerShell, shell scripts, Go language can do automation. But I told you people from development background can easily understand write code. But modern day enterprises are using tools which has to be used by developers as well as non-developers. So they have developed a lot of automation softwares. And Terraform is one of the software developed by a company called HashiCorp. Okay, and it is a open source software. It is human readable. It can be used in an enterprise as a collaborative software, and it is used for multi-cloud automation. So it is not only for AWS cloud automation. You can use it for Azure cloud, GCP, and various other infrastructures. Okay. Yeah. So this is what I explained about Terraform. Okay. Now let's do the setup. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to install Terraform in my local desktop. See, I actually had Terraform in my machine. Purposefully, I have deleted it just to show you how to install because the installation is very simple. Now, to know whether Terraform is installed in your machine or not, you can go to PowerShell. You can type Terraform. Okay, so when you type Terraform, if Terraform is not a recognized command, then it means Terraform is not there in your machine. Okay. you'll not see like a graphical software like Edge browser or Amazon Music. You will not see as a graphical software. You need to go to the PowerShell and you need to type Terraform. If Terraform is installed, Terraform will be considered as a recognized command. Otherwise, you get the red color error. Okay, now to download and install Terraform, just search for Terraform download. Okay, search for Terraform download. Okay, you will be taken to HashiCorp's website, developer.hashicorp.com Terraform, where you can click on this install Terraform. Okay, so this is official website of Terraform. Okay, HashiCorp is a company who developed the Terraform. Okay, now this HashiCorp is owned by IBM. Okay, IBM purchased this company HashiCorp. Okay, now you can see here for Mac, you need to use these commands to install Terraform in your Mac. For Windows, you can download software. Okay, so 386 is for Intel and AMD 64 is for AMD processor. And 1.13.1 is the latest version. So over the period of time, there is a lot of versions. Okay. Right. So now I'll download this Windows version. Okay, I'll click on this because I am using Intel based machine. I'll click on this download. So when I download, it will download a zipped file. Okay. Right. So I'll save this file somewhere in my local computer. Okay. So I'll put it in C drive. Okay, you can download it anywhere. Yeah, I have already that zipped. So it says I don't have permission. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll change it to some other folder. Maybe I'll put it in desktop. Okay, so I have saved the zipped file in my desktop. Okay, this is step one. Then go to desktop, extract that particular file. Okay, so this is the file which I downloaded. It is a zipped file. So right click on it and extract it. Click on extract all and extract it in any folder. You can extract anywhere, C drive, D drive, anywhere. Okay. So what I'll do is I'll extract to a folder called C:\Terraform. Okay. See, I don't have Terraform folder in my C drive. So if you see here, this is my C drive. I don't have a folder called Terraform. But when I do this extraction, I'm saying I want to extract it to this folder C drive. So it will create a folder called Terraform within C drive and it will extract the software. This is the software. I've understood. Now, even though it is a exe file, you will not be able to install it like a traditional software. You can't double click on it, open it. You can't go like a wizard based way. So Terraform downloaded as a zipped file, you extract it and you keep it in some folder anywhere. Now, once after you extract it, what you need to do is you need to go to environment variables. So you need to go to system environment variables. You need to search env in your Windows. You can go to system environment variables and you can click on this environment variable. Go to the path variable and edit the path variable and add a new line, new variable saying C:\Terraform, where you have extract the path, the folder path. So now once after you add this environment variable, your PowerShell command line or the command prompt, your operating system's existing command prompt or PowerShell will recognize Terraform software. Okay, so which means whenever you type Terraform as a command, Terraform will try to load the program from this folder. That's the meaning of it. Okay, that's what we are setting environment variable. Okay, I'll say okay. Again, I'll click on okay. Again, I'll click on okay. That's it. Now that's it. Okay, so we have successfully installed the Terraform. It's very simple. So what I did, I downloaded the zipped file, extracted to C drive. I set a path variable. Once after I do this, go to PowerShell. Little earlier when we typed Terraform, it was not a recognized command. It was saying error. It was throwing error. Okay, but now if I use Terraform, if I just hit Terraform enter, okay, it will be a recognized command. It will not throw any errors. It is not throwing any red color errors, right? It says Terraform and how to use that Terraform software. Okay. So Terraform has various subcommands, various commands, various concepts. Terraform can be learned like a separate course for around 20 hours. Have you understood? Right. So have you understood how to install Terraform? It's very simple. So what I did, I downloaded the zipped file, extracted to C drive, and I set a path variable. Now within my machine, Terraform is a recognized command. Have you understood? Okay. See, I am installing Terraform in my local laptop. But if you are working in a company, your enterprise may have Terraform installed on a server. Okay. From your local office, when you create programs and when you run the program, that will create resources in cloud. I understood. I did the installation of Terraform in my laptop. We can install Terraform in our laptop to do the learning. But if you're working in a company, Terraform will be installed on a server. Now, how to install it on server? Very simple. So maybe follow the same article. If it is Windows Server, this is the same process. If it is Linux, you need to type the commands on the Linux system to install Terraform. If it is Ubuntu-based machine, you need to copy these 3 commands to install Terraform on Ubuntu. If it is Red Hat-based machine, you need to copy these 3 commands to install Terraform on Red Hat servers. Okay. Even for various other servers, they have given the commands. Okay. I understood. Any questions? If you have any questions, you can ask. Okay, now. So listen. Once you have Terraform installed in your computer, laptop, server, desktop, wherever, okay. So what will be done by the enterprise means they will create a folder, project folder. And within that, they will start to write the code. Okay, they will start to write the code. I understood. Okay, so that's what I'm also going to do. I'm going to create a project folder and I'm going to create a code for today because I'm just giving an introduction to use Terraform. I'm just going to create a single file called ec2.tf and I'll write a code for launching a virtual machine in cloud. That is what I'm going to do. Okay. But what can be done, what enterprises will do in a production environment? Enterprises will do a lot of things. Within a project, they will add a lot of Terraform code. They will run the entire project. When they run the entire project, everything will get created. Everything means whatever you want to build via code in cloud, all can be created. Have you understood? See, I have some projects because I'm using Terraform for years. I have already some projects in my local computer. So this I have created in 2024, TF57, where I have a lot of code. I haven't written in a single day. I have written all this, maybe spending more than 25, 30 days. Okay. I understood. So, but I know this project, if I run, will create a very big infrastructure in AWS cloud. I understood. Okay. Now, like this, because you are getting started, I'm just going to create a folder. I'm just going to create a single file and I'm going to run it. I understood.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah. So now see. Okay. So normally people who write code, whether it is development code or it is automation code, people use a software called Visual Studio Code. Okay. Even in my local machine, Visual Studio Code is installed. Visual Studio Code is it's like a editor. Okay. Notepad, WordPad, like that. Visual Studio Code is a IDE. So it is a development environment. Okay. It's a editor where you can write the code. Okay. So I have Visual Studio Code software in my machine and I'm opening Visual Studio Code. Okay. So what is this Visual Studio Code? If you are not aware of Visual Studio Code, I'm saying Visual Studio Code is a development environment. Okay. It's like Notepad, WordPad. Okay. It's a software where you can create folders, you can create files, you can add programs to it. Now today, what I'm doing, I'm going to add a program related to Terraform. Okay, so I'll go to this file, I'll click on open folder. And for writing code in my desktop, I'll create a folder saying project A. See, you can give any name of your choice. I created an empty folder and I'm selecting this folder. Okay, when I select this folder, you can see project A is here. Okay, project A is here. So now what I did, I have created a folder with the name project A. So this is going to be the folder where you will have all the automation code. Okay, and I have loaded that folder via Visual Studio Code. Now from Visual Studio Code, I can create files. I can click on new file, I can create a file. I can click on new folder, create folders. So normally we graphically go to folders and create files and folder, right? Here itself, you can right click and create file, create folder. That also can be done, but Visual Studio Code, from the Visual Studio Code, you can create files, create folders, okay? Right. Right, so I'm going to create a file. Okay. So I'll say, you can give any name of your choice. Okay, any name of your choice. I'll say main, but it has to finish with .tf. TF means Terraform. See, when I just say main, Visual Studio Code doesn't recognize, but when after adding the extension, Visual Studio Code understands that it is a Terraform code. Okay, I understood. So I'm saying main.tf. You can create the file with any name, but it has to finish with .tf. Now, within this code, within this file, okay, so if I save, it will be an empty file. Okay, if I go graphically, if I go to desktop, project A, you can see there is a file main.tf, but it is an empty file because I haven't added any text within it. I created a folder, I opened via Visual Studio Code, and I created a file main.tf. I understood. Right. Okay, so it's not ec2.tf, it's main.tf. Now, what I need to do, I need to write code here, the code to do some activity in cloud. Now, before I write the main code for launching EC2 instance, if I run the code, how my machine will know in which AWS cloud it has to do the automation, right? So if I run the code, how my machine knows to which AWS cloud account it has to do the authentication or automation. So I need to do some other extra thing. I need to do authentication. Okay. I understood. So if we are connecting via browser, what we do, we type the root user email ID and password. Now, if you want to write a code and run the code has to run against infrastructure, right? So you need to use a authentication code. Now, I'll take you to Terraform website. I'll search for Terraform registry. If I go to Terraform registry, Terraform registry.terraform.io is a page, okay, where if you go to this providers, I'll tell you what is provider. If you go to provider, based on which platform you are doing automation, you have separate documentation. Okay? If you are doing automation for AWS, you can go to this AWS section. If you are doing automation for Azure cloud using Terraform, you can go to Azure. If you are doing automation against GCP, you can go to GCP or Kubernetes, Alibaba, Oracle, and various other. Okay, there's a lot. Okay. So now what I'll do is I'll click on AWS because AWS is being very popular. It is showing at the very top. Okay, I'll click on this AWS section. Once I go here, there is a documentation section. Okay, maybe if you want, I can share this page. Okay. So in this documentation, if you scroll down, okay, here you can see authentication and configuration. There is actually 6 ways to do authentication against AWS cloud, but I'll use the easiest way, the not recommended way. So, which is not really recommended, but I'm doing it for today. Okay. Because I'm just doing an initial session, I'm doing it. When you're practicing, you can also do it, but this is not used in a production environment. Okay. Because if you see here, this is a block of code. Okay. We call this as block. I'll copy this block of code. I go to my project folder and I'll paste it here. Okay. I don't want ChatGPTs. Okay. So I pasted the block of code. Okay. Now, see, I told you it's human readable. It says provider AWS. It means I am trying to connect to AWS cloud. That's the meaning of it. Region, in which region I want to do the automation. So that region code has to be mentioned here. Okay, I'll say I want to do it against US East 1. US East 1 is, okay, let me go to US East 1, North Virginia. Okay, US East 1. I want to do the automation today in North Virginia. Okay. So I go here, I go to EC2. Okay, and if I go to instances, actually I don't have any instance. Okay. I want to create a EC2 instance today in an automated way. So I need to use the code, region code here. Then see, we need to use something called access key and secret key. See, very recently, maybe who have learned AWS CLI, you know what is access key and what is secret access key. But if you haven't attended AWS CLI yet, maybe I know there are some students from new batches. So if you haven't attended AWS CLI, it's fine. Okay, I'll tell you what is this access key and what is the secret key. See, when we log in via browser, we use the email ID and password, right? Very similarly, when we want to do automation from our local computer, we use username and password like thing that is called access key and secret access key. Now, this is a sample given from the website. I'll remove this and I'll remove this as well. Okay. Now, within this double quotes, I need to use the access key and secret key. Now, where I'll get the access key and secret key? Okay, so you need to go to AWS console, go to right top, your name, click on this security credentials. Okay, go to the security credentials. See, this is not recommended. Again, I'm saying because I'm just teaching you how to get started to it. I'm doing it. I'm doing it for root user. Almighty can do anything. It is recommended to create the access key and secret key for IAM users. Okay, even if you create it for IAM users, if you are in a production environment, if this is a production project, people will not add the access keys and secret key directly in the code. Because you are doing it for the first time, I'm just doing it. This is one way of 6 ways. Okay, this is one of the way among the 6 ways of authentication to AWS Cloud. There are other best practices, but today, to be very easy, I'm using the one which is not recommended. Okay, right? It says hard-coded credentials are not recommended in any Terraform configuration and risk secret leakage because your access keys and secret keys, maybe if this file is exposed, if you are putting it somewhere in GitHub or some places, version control, anybody can see. That's what they are saying. Okay, it is not recommended, but I am doing it today. Okay, you can also do it, but don't share it with anyone. Don't keep the code in some public places. Okay, right. Okay, so I go here. I go to security credentials. Okay, now in this security credentials, go to access keys, click on create access key. Okay, I understand creating access key for root user is not recommended, but I'll do that. I'll click on create. And here you can see the access key, and here you can see the secret access key. Okay, I'll copy the access key and I'll paste it here. And I'll copy the secret access key and I'll paste it here. Okay, don't do it. Don't take any screenshot. Right? Okay, I know at this moment, if anyone who is watching, if they have these access keys and secret keys, they can also do automation from their AWS cloud, sorry, from their mission. Okay, it is very sensitive. Okay, so if this access keys and secret key is exposed to some hacker, they can also use Terraform in their mission. They can also do automation against my AWS account. Okay, right. Okay, so I have added the values. So this is first step. So I'll save this. Okay, so which means in this main.tf, what I have in this main.tf, I have this block of code where I have mentioned the region where I want to do the automation. I have used the access key and secret key of the root user, which is not recommended, but I did this. So using this, Terraform will authenticate to AWS Cloud. Have you understood? Have you understood? Any questions? Okay, I told you this is not recommended, but because I'm just I'm making you to get start to Terraform. I'm doing this. You can also get start like this. But when you learn a lot in Terraform over the period of time, you can do other way of authentications. Okay, right? You can do AWS CLI integration as well. Okay, so that is best practices. But for today, I'm not doing it. Okay, now let's move on. Okay, see, I have few more things. Maybe I'll quickly write the code, run the code, and finish maybe in another 10-15 minutes. Okay, so I have done the authentication configuration. I created a folder, I created a file, and within that I have done the authentication configuration. Okay, now listen very carefully. From your project, when you are doing any automation, anything, so you can access, you can connect to 200 plus services of AWS, 5,000 plus features of AWS. You can do anything. Okay, it's not only launching EC2 instance. You are getting started. I'm launching a EC2 instance today, but it can be VPC creation. It can be any activity what we do manually via the browser that can be written in a code. Okay. Now, in order to do that, you need to create another block. You can create it in the same file, or you can create it in a separate file. Okay. So I'll do it in a separate file. I'll say ec2.tf. Okay. I'm again creating another TF file. This time, this file is for creating the EC2 instance. Okay. It is possible that you can put all the code in a single file, or it is possible you can separate it. Okay. I'm using ec2.tf. Now within this, I am going to add another block of code. So listen very carefully. This is like any resource you create via Terraform throughout your lifetime. If you are using Terraform, okay, any resource you create via Terraform, that resource creation can be done using a block called resource block. Okay, little earlier I was using a block called provider block. Okay, you can see here, this is provider block. Provider block is for authentication. Now, if you want to create any resource means EC2 instance, S3 bucket, or VPC, or anything you are creating in cloud. Okay, for that you need to create something called resource block. Okay, now I'll just tell you the skeleton of resource block. So it will start with resource. Then depends upon the type of resource, you need to use some resource type. Then you need to give some reference name. So it looks like code, but it's not code. Okay, no worries. Maybe if you deep dive into Terraform, then it becomes easy. Okay, looks like some code, but it's not really a code. Okay, so any resource you create via Terraform will have a block called a resource block. So it will start with resource. Then you need to use something called resource type. Then you need to use reference name within open curly brace and close curly brace. If you are creating EC2 instance, you need to use the properties related to EC2 instance. We call that as arguments. Okay, this is actually the block. Now, because here in my Visual Studio Code, I have Terraform plugin. If I just type resource R, if I just type R, it is auto-completing. It will automatically build the skeleton of the code. Okay. See, I just typed R, I clicked enter, the resource block got created. Okay. So now this resource block is for creating EC2 instance for today. So I told you all the resource block, anything you do via Terraform will always start with the resource. Okay, in future, maybe let's say this block is for creating EC2 instance. Maybe in future, if you want to create another resource for S3, you need to create another resource block. If you are creating another resource, for example, EFS, you need to create another resource block. Okay. So you can create a lot of resource blocks. Every resource block is for creating some resource. Now, here I need to use something called resource type. There may be millions of resource types. Okay, there may be millions. Seriously, you can see here in the official documentation. This is the documentation. In this documentation, depends upon what resource you are creating, there will be a resource type. Resource type cannot be guessed. Depends upon the type of service you use. You need to find it. So if I want to create EC2 instance, there is a resource type called AWS_instance. Again, with experience, I'm directly taking you to this section, AWS_instance. Okay. So I will add AWS_instance. So which means using this resource, so because I have Copilot, it is auto completing. Okay, it is giving an example code, but still I don't want the code. Okay, so I'll say resource AWS underscore instance. Using this resource type, I want to create a EC2 instance. That's my aim. Now, see, if you are doing EC2 instance creation in a manual way, what you do? You click on launch instance, and then you use name, you select the image, then you select the instance type, you select the key pair, you select the network setup, you select the storage setup, and then finally you click on launch, right? Whatever we are doing here now can be added here in the resource block as arguments. Now, this argument is actually key value. Again, it cannot be guessed. Again, it will be little difficult for a beginner, but it cannot be guessed. But for today, what I'll do is from this official document, I am just adding two arguments. Okay, if you go here to argument section, I can say AMI. AMI is the type of AMI I want to use to launch instance. I can select availability zone where I want to launch instance. There is a lot of properties. I'll select only two today to be very easy. One is AMI. I'll say AMI equal to, and I go graphically. If I want to launch Linux instance, I copy this AMI ID and I'll come back to the code and I'll paste it here. Right. This Copilot is sometimes correct. Did I copy the one? Need to disable this. Okay. Now I pasted the AMI ID and use double quotes. It has to be in double quotes. Okay. So which means I just created a resource block. This resource block is for creating a EC2 instance using this image. Then see, it depends upon what I want. I can actually add a lot of arguments. Okay. But I'll just go with instance type. Instance type is the capacity of the instance. Maybe T2 micro, M5 large. What instance type I want to use, I can use here. Okay, I'll say instance type equal to T2 micro. So, right, that's it. See, in a production environment, it's not just only the AMI and instance, but for this session, okay, I'm just using the AMI and the instance. Okay, so using this block, if I run the code now, if I run the code, it will launch a EC2 instance in my AWS Cloud account. I've understood. I've understood. See, I told you to create any resource in AWS via Terraform, there will be a block called resource block. If you want to launch EC2 instance, there will be a resource block. If you want to create S3 bucket, there will be a resource block. If you want to create a VPC, there will be a resource block. For any resource, there will be a resource block. Resource block will always start with resource, then a resource type. Now, resource type cannot be guessed. Depends upon the type of resource you create. You need to find the resource type. This is a reference name. You can give any name. And within this open curly brace and this closed curly brace, you use key value form. And all the information, whatever I'm writing here is not really programmed. It's human readable data serialization. I'm serializing what I want to do. I'm saying I want to use this image. I want to use this instance type. Like that, I can keep on using a lot of parameters. I want to use this EBS volume. I want to use this user data. I want to use so and so. I can do a lot of things here, but I'm not doing today. Just added this block of code. I've understood. Okay, that's it. Now I'll save this. Okay, now how many codes we have in our project? We have two files. One is main.tf, another is ec2.tf. Now, from my local computer, I want to run the code. If I run the code, because I have the authentication against my AWS account, because I have the resource block configuration, so it will create the resource in my AWS Cloud. Have you understood? Now, if Terraform want to do that automation, I need to do two commands. I need to type two commands. One is Terraform init. I need to type a command called Terraform init. If I type Terraform init, Terraform will add some plugins in the backend. Okay. I'm not going deep related to it today, but Terraform will add some plugins in this project. So those plugins are programs which will connect to the cloud and do the action. We are just writing few lines of code, right? But how that code will do automation against cloud? So Terraform uses some plugin in the backend. In order to get those plugin, you need to use a command Terraform init from your project. Then if you use Terraform plan, which cannot be done in the traditional programs. See, if you write a Python program, if you run the program, what happens? It runs. You can't say that do a trial run or give a plan. You can't say that. But in softwares like Terraform, you can use Terraform plan. You can preview what is going to happen, which means you have written the code. You can preview what is going to happen in the future using Terraform plan. Then you can use a command called Terraform apply. Terraform apply is a command which will create the resources in cloud. So these are the three Terraform commands which I am going to use. Now, from where I need to use? I need to go to the command line. See, this Visual Studio Code itself has a command line. You can go to terminal, you can go to new terminal. That will open PowerShell within the Visual Studio Code. And you are within the project folder, project A. Now from here, if I use a command Terraform init, what does this command means? See, once you write the code, if you use Terraform init, this will pull some plugin to your project. Okay. These plugins are used to connect to AWS Cloud. So for that only we are using Terraform init. Okay, I'm using Terraform init. It will automatically create some hidden folders like .terraform and some files within the project. Okay, you'll see that. So when I use Terraform init, it will pull some plugins in the backend. Okay, you can see it created some hidden folders and it will have a lot of binaries within it. Okay, yeah, but nobody will use it. But it will create automatically. That is Terraform init. So when you use Terraform init from the project directory, it will create some plugins. Those plugins are used behind the scene when we run these codes. Okay. Right. Okay, so that once after I do this, okay, because I have a perfectly written code, with experience, I know I have written a perfectly working code. I have proper authentication configuration and code for launching EC2 instance. What I can do? I can use a command Terraform plan. Plan is not really needed, but using Terraform, we can use a plan. Terraform plan will show what is going to happen in cloud. This cannot be done using traditional programming language. If you write a code and if you run the code, it will run. But here I have written a code. I am doing a plan against the infrastructure. So the plan will compare your local code against your infrastructure and it will say what is going to happen. Okay. When I use Terraform plan, okay, I'm typing Terraform plan. So in the backend, it will do some comparison. In the backend, it will do some comparison and it will look into your project code as well as into AWS Cloud. And it is saying that you can see here, Terraform uses the selected plugin to generate the execution plan. Terraform is going to perform a following action. It is going to create a EC2 instance. That's what it's saying. It is going to use this image. It is going to use T2 micro. And finally, it is saying one to add, which means one resource is going to get created. This is what the plan says. If I go to cloud, I don't have any EC2 instance at the moment. Okay. I understood. I don't have any EC2 instance. But if I use Terraform apply, okay, plan is just a plan. It will say in the command line what is going to happen in the cloud. But if I use Terraform apply will really execute the plan. Terraform apply will also show the plan. Additionally, it will apply the code in the cloud. I understood. Yeah, I'm going to do it. So I'll use Terraform apply. When I use Terraform apply, it will use the code what I have written and it will show the plan. It says one to add. Now, additionally, it is asking, do you want to perform these actions? I told you Terraform plan will just show the plan, but Terraform apply will show the plan and it will ask, do we need to apply this against AWS Cloud? If I say yes, this resource of EC2 instance will get created in cloud. Okay. See, to summarize, seems like it will be a little difficult for beginners because you have launched EC2 instance graphically, right, via this management console a lot of time. It seems like this is easy and seems doing it in the command line, creating project, creating a code and writing the code and creating the resource is difficult. But this is very powerful, okay? You have created once. So now if you see, if I do a refresh, you have a EC2 instance in AWS Cloud, right? I understood. Now, I told you
Yes,
Terraform is intelligent. Okay, I told you Terraform is intelligent. Because this project is for creating a EC2 instance, if I again try to apply, it will not create the resource. Terraform intelligently understands that this project is already done. How it understands? Because Terraform has a brain. Okay, it's very powerful than humans. Human brains cannot remember a lot of things what we do for technical activity, but Terraform has a brain in the backend called state. Okay, I'm not going deep related to state today, but because Terraform has a concept called state, it remembers everything. It will know what it has created in cloud in the backend within the project. So when you again try to create it, okay, it will say that it is already there. This time it is not going to create the resource. Okay. See, I'm again trying to apply. Terraform will compare the local project and it will say that it is already there. It says refreshing state. It is comparing its brain and it says your infrastructure is matching the configuration. So Terraform have compared your real infrastructure against your project and found no difference. And Terraform intelligently says nothing to add, no changes, nothing to destroy. I understood. This cannot be done using traditional programming languages. I understood. Now, if you want to destroy, if you really want to destroy the EC2 instance or whatever project related resources you created, you can use Terraform destroy. So Terraform destroy command, whatever Terraform created will get destroyed. Okay, I understood. This resource is created by Terraform. So this resource will get deleted if you use Terraform destroy. Terraform will not destroy resources you create manually. Terraform will destroy only the resources created by you within the project. I understood. Because I told you Terraform has a brain. That brain knows what Terraform have created. So when you type Terraform destroy, it will destroy the resources what Terraform have created via this project. Okay, I'll use Terraform destroy. This time, it will give a plan saying it is going to delete the EC2 instance. Okay, it will ask us, okay, it will compare the state, it will ask us what is going to happen. If I say yes, it will destroy. If I say no, it will not destroy. Okay, it says this is the EC2 instance there in the cloud. Do you really want to perform this action? If you destroy, it will get deleted. So it says, do you really want to destroy all the resource? Terraform will destroy all your managed infrastructure. If I say yes, okay, I'll say yes. If I say yes, Terraform will destroy the EC2 instance in AWS Cloud. I understood. See, for the first time, I spent like around half an hour creating this project, right? But if I have a situation in a company, let's say every day my senior manager is asking me to create a EC2 instance for developers. I don't want to go to AWS Cloud, click. I don't want to do it because I have already a project for creating EC2 instance. I can run, I can use Terraform apply. Tomorrow, if I want to create EC2 instance, the only thing I want to do is I need to go to the project and do Terraform apply. That will create the EC2 instance in AWS Cloud. Day after tomorrow, if I want to launch EC2 instance, again, I want to go to the project, type the command Terraform apply. Right? I understood. But within the project, if you again apply, I told you it will not create new instances. What you can do, you can completely copy the project. Okay. So writing code is very powerful. You created this project for launching one instance. Now, if you want to do it for other instance, copy the project. You have created a copy of the project, rename it project B. Okay, and now within project B, you have you can edit the change, you can edit, right? So maybe project A, you want to create Amazon Linux instance, but project B, you want to create Windows instance, right? So in this file, you can edit the image names, instance capacity, or changes, whatever you want to do, you can run it. I understood. So that's very powerful. Writing code once is difficult, but repeating the activity is easy. Okay, so this is enough for the day. So to summarize what I have taught you, I explained the difference between manual versus automation. I told you first time manually doing it is okay, but if you are repeating tasks, okay, it will be time consuming. Today I have shown you the power of repeating, right? I created one project, I spent a lot of time, obviously, but if I want to create 10 different projects, I can copy paste, right? It's easy. And errors, first project, if it is really successfully created, for sure, all the remaining projects, if I copy paste, it will work. Obviously, you may face errors as well while working with Terraform, but comparing human errors, okay, these errors are less. Knowledge transfer, okay, let's say I'm leaving the organization after creating this project. If someone else is coming to this organization, if they also have Terraform knowledge, they will look into the code, they will understand what I have done. Okay, it's very powerful. Then, right, I told you about traditional programs. You need program skills to write the code, but automation software, today I have explained how to get started to it. But this is not enough. This is a get start to it, right? So you need to put a lot of effort. Again, additionally, learn how to use Terraform coding. Gradually understand the language of Terraform. The Terraform's language is called HashiCorp configuration language. Okay, HashiCorp configuration language. You need to start learning this language. I told you anybody can learn. Even if you are not from a development background, it is possible to learn this. You can do cloud automation. If you have knowledge on cloud, you can additionally learn cloud automation. Have you understood? Right. Okay, so this is enough. If you have questions, you can ask, or else we'll finish with this.
So from the same main.tf file, can we create several instances?
Yeah, it is possible. Okay. See, I destroyed the instance. Maybe if I do a refresh, this instance it is not there, right? Now, if I want to launch one more EC2 instance, actually, there are other concepts, but today I'll just copy paste the block. If I copy paste the block, but this reference name, I need to give unique name. Okay. And now if I run, it will launch two EC2 instances if I do a Terraform apply. If I want to launch one Amazon Linux and one Windows, graphically it is not easy. You need to spend a lot of time, right? But if I want to do it via code, I can do this. Okay. So for example, so I go to Windows. So I select Windows Server 2022 base. You will know the power of Terraform maybe once you learn completely Terraform. Okay. So you can add this here. So which means this image is for Amazon Linux. This image is for Windows, which means I have written a block of code. This will launch two EC2 instances, one a Linux server, one a Windows server. But is it possible to do it graphically via the web UI? No, not at all possible via one time, right? You need to first launch Windows, then again you need to launch Linux, or you need to launch Linux and then launch Windows. But via this code, if you run, it will create two instances. Okay, so I'll save. I come back to the terminal command line. Okay, so here it is. I'm in the command line, and now if I use Terraform apply. Okay, so this time the plan will say that it will launch two EC2 instances because my code has two EC2 block, two resource block. It will create two resources. It says two to add, and if I say yes, it will launch two EC2 instances. Okay, now if I go here to cloud and see. Okay, you can see two EC2 instances are getting launched. One is One is Windows Server 2022, and another is Amazon Linux. Have you understood?
Yes.
So within some seconds, I have quickly done it. So again, it's not only 2 blocks. If you want 10 blocks, you can create 10 blocks, edit the images, edit the possibilities. Let's say if you want to launch one T2 micro and M1 M5 large, you can change this. If you change the values, you can do a lot of things. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Right. Any other questions? If you have questions, okay, I can help you. Okay, so you can also try doing it. Okay, right. So this is enough for the day.